The Silent Litany. Somewhere above a dead world, in a corridor that has not felt the tread of a living foot in 11 standard years, a single data slate lies shattered on the deck plate. Its screen still glows. Its last recorded words are not a prayer. They are a question. Was the machine god ever listening? Or did we simply need him to be? In 4 hours, a woman who has never doubted her emperor will kneel beside that slate and doubt him for the first time. In 4 hours, a man who has spent 60 years certain of his god will burn every certainty he owns to protect a boy who is not his son. And in 4 hours, that boy, barely old enough to have taken his first oath, will be asked to choose between the two people who raised him from nothing. None of them will get what they want. All of them will get what they need. This is not a story about who was right. This is a story about what faith costs when it's the only thing you have left. The forge station Anchorate Tertius does not orbit anything. It hangs, chained by 12 kilometers of consecrated cable, above a world called Ashkevar Minor, a rock so poisoned by its own dead atmosphere that even the Adeptus Mechanicus, who find purpose in ruin, have declared it unworthy of reclamation. Anchorate Tertius exists for one reason: to guard what was found beneath Ashkevar's crust 400 years ago. A vessel, pre-Imperial. Its hull inscribed with a script no living tech priest has fully translated, though several have died trying. The locals, what few remain in the orbital's lower decks, call it the sleeping reliquary. The Mechanicus calls it object ferrum occulta. Nobody calls it what it actually is, because nobody yet knows. Magos Vorus Kael has spent 19 years trying to find out. He was not the first. A brass plate beside the vessel's outer hull bears the name of his predecessor, Magos Vorus, whose service ended in a manner the station's official records describe only as reassignment. Kael was 9 years into his own study before he learned, by accident, in a supply manifest never meant for his eyes, that Chorus's reassignment had in fact been an execution, ordered from Mars itself for reasons the manifest did not record. He has never told anyone he knows this, not even Ren. Some knowledge, he has decided, is a weight meant to be carried alone. Log entry, cycle 4412, he records, alone in his workshop. The lumens dim to conserve power at this late hour. The inscription on Bulkhead 7 does not match known Martian dialects, Terran Gothic variants, or Xenos linguistic templates catalogued by the Ordo Xenos. I have cross-referenced against 40,000 known scripts. It matches nothing, which means it predates everything I was taught to believe was first. He pauses the recording, walks the length of the outer hull alone, his augmetic fingers tracing letters that mean nothing and everything. 12 kilometers below, on the corpse of a world called Ashkevar Minor, dust storms the color of dried blood scour a surface that has not known rain in 10,000 years. He finds, standing there, that he no longer knows whether the vessel he guards is a relic of holy providence, or something the Imperium has simply not yet found a doctrine flexible enough to survive. He does not write down what he thinks that means. Not yet. Some thoughts, even alone, even in the dark, feel too dangerous to give a shape. But his hand trembles when he seals the log. And Vorus Kael's hands have not trembled in 30 years. 3 weeks later, a ship with no registry markings burns hard into Anchorate Tertius's docking ring. It carries a single passenger, 6 armed retainers, and a writ sealed with the rosette of the Ordo Hereticus. Her name is Tessa Marr. She has been an Inquisitor for 11 years. In that time, she has burned 4 shrines, executed 19 ranking officials of the Adeptus Terra, and never once, not once, reopened a case she had already closed. Among her own retainers, this is spoken of with something between pride and unease. They call her the Unbending Litany, though never to her face. She is here because someone on this station sent an astropathic message that never should have been sent. A single sentence, fragmented, half-mad with cognitive strain, caught mid-transmission by a relay tower 3 sectors distant. The Omnissiah did not create the first data. Something else did, and we found where. The astropath who received it went to his own confessor within the hour. Word travels fast, even across the dark between stars, when it travels as fear. Magos Vorus Kael, she says, cold and formal, the moment she finds him in the forge's lower gallery. I am Inquisitor Tessa Marr, Ordo Hereticus, acting under Imperial Writ 781. You will surrender all logs pertaining to Object Ferrum Occulta, effective immediately. Inquisitor, Kael answers, measured, though something flickers underneath, fear, pride both. My work here is sanctioned by the fabricator locum of this subsector. I answer to the priesthood of Mars, not... You answer to the Emperor, she cuts in. Everyone does. The priesthood of Mars simply forgot to remind you of that. She lets that settle before continuing, her eyes moving once, deliberately, over the brass plate bearing Chorus's name. I am not here to destroy your work, Magos. I am here to determine whether your work has already destroyed you. It is, Vorus Kael will later reflect, the most honest thing anyone says to him in the next 11 days. He does not know yet that it will also be the thing he remembers as she leaves him. Whether alive or dead, he does not yet know which. Her retainers move through the station like a slow-closing hand. Terminals are sealed, storage lockers catalogued. A young engineer named Halvo Renk, second only to Kael in seniority, is questioned for 6 hours about maintenance logs he barely remembers filing, and emerges pale, shaken, and suddenly very eager to distance himself from his Magos. It is Renk who first suggests, quietly to one of Marr's retainers, that perhaps the investigation should widen, that perhaps Kael is not the only soul on this station worth examining. Marr notes the suggestion. She does not act on it yet. She has learned, over 11 years, that the first man to volunteer an accusation is rarely doing it for the reasons he claims. The station's youngest soul is a 17-year-old acolyte named Wren, indentured to Kael's forge since the age of 6, when Mechanicus recruiters found him starving in the lower habstacks of a nearby mining world and offered him the one thing no one else had, a reason to keep breathing. He has never known another master. He has never questioned another doctrine. To Wren, Vorus Kael is not simply his teacher. He is proof that broken things can still be made useful. That was the lesson Wren needed most. Magos, Wren says, finding him after the Inquisitor's retainers begin their search, his voice nervous, trying to sound composed. The Inquisitor's retainers are cataloging your private terminal. Is there anything I should move before they... No, Kael says, sharp, immediate. Touch nothing. You understand me, Wren? Nothing. Then, softer, catching himself. I have done nothing that requires hiding. Remember that. Whatever they find, whatever they say I have done, I have only ever tried to understand what the machine god left for us to find. Ren nods. He believes him completely. He has never had a reason not to. He does not yet know that belief, unexamined, is the easiest thing in the galaxy to break. Nor does he know that in the archive 3 decks below, a data ledger bearing Ilion Chorus's name is about to surface, and that when it does, it will be Ren, not Kael, who finds it first. Before that, Ren is questioned himself, briefly, almost as an afterthought, by Ansel Doro in a bare storage compartment repurposed for the interviews. She asks him simple things at first. How long he has served, what his duties are, whether he has ever witnessed the Magos performing unsanctioned rites near the Reliquary. Ren answers each honestly, plainly, without embellishment, exactly as Kael taught him to answer any official inquiry. Then Doro leans forward and asks the question she has clearly been building toward the entire time. Has your Magos ever told you he no longer believes what the Cult Mechanicus teaches? Ren hesitates, not because he intends to lie, but because he genuinely does not know how to answer something that complicated with the simplicity the question demands. He's told me he has questions, he finally says. He's never told me he stopped believing. I don't think those are the same thing. Are they to you? Doro studies him for a long moment, and something in her expression softens, almost imperceptibly, before she catches herself. No, she admits. They are not always the same thing, though my Ordo does not always draw that distinction as carefully as it should. She dismisses him without further questions, and makes a note in her own log that the boy's testimony, at minimum, does not read as coached. On the 3rd night, unable to sleep, Ren finds Tessa Marr alone in the observation gallery, staring down at Ashkavar Miner's slow red churn through reinforced glass. He almost turns back. Instead, some reckless instinct keeps him walking forward. You're not what I expected an Inquisitor to be, he says, before he can stop himself. And what did you expect? Marr asks, not turning. Someone who already knows the answer before they ask the question. A faint, humorless sound, almost a laugh, escapes her. Most of my Order would tell you that is exactly what an Inquisitor should be. Certainty is efficient, doubt is slow, and slow men die waiting for permission to act. She finally looks at him. I have simply found, over 11 years, that efficiency and truth are not always the same virtue wearing different robes. Then why come at all? If you already suspect he might be innocent? Because suspicion is not evidence, acolyte, in either direction. I did not come here to protect your Magos. I did not come here to destroy him either. I came to find out which is true, and I have not yet decided that those are contradictory goals. She studies him a moment. Tell me about him. Not the log entries, the man. Ren hesitates, then speaks, haltingly at first, then with more feeling than he intends. He tells her about the first winter after his arrival, when he was too small for his robes and too frightened to speak, and how Kael sat with him 3 nights running, simply reciting the names of tools until the boy could say them back without his voice shaking. He tells her Kael has never once raised a hand to him, not in 9 years, even when Ren ruined an irreplaceable calibration array in his 2nd year of training. He tells her that whatever Kael has found in that ship, it has not made him crueler. If anything, Wren says, it has made him gentler, as though carrying a secret that large leaves less room inside a man for smaller cruelties. Marr listens without interrupting. When he finishes, she says only, "That is useful testimony, Wren. Perhaps the most useful I have gathered since I arrived." She does not tell him that night that it is also the testimony that frightens her most, because devotion like that is far harder to burn cleanly than doctrine ever was. Tessa Marr does not begin with accusations. She begins, as she always does, by reading. 19 years of logs, 400,000 words of increasingly obsessive annotation. She reads Kael's early entries, clinical, devout, every discovery framed as evidence of the Omnissiah's design, and watches cycle by cycle as the language changes. By year 12, evidence of divine architecture has become evidence of prior architecture. By year 17, the word divine appears only twice in an entire year of entries. By year 19, it does not appear at all. "You didn't lose your faith all at once, did you, Magos?" she murmurs to herself, low, almost reluctant. "You lost it one honest sentence at a time." This should make her judgment simple. A tech priest whose devotion has visibly, documentably eroded in proximity to a Xenos or pre-Imperial artifact of unknown origin. This is, by any measure of Ordo Hereticus doctrine, a closed case before it opens. She has burned men for less. She has burned men for far, far less. And yet he documented every step, she says quietly, unsettled, a crack showing in her control. Every doubt. He never hid a single word of it. Heretics hide. Heretics obscure. This man built me a roadmap to his own damnation and left the lumens on. She pauses. That is not the behavior of a man who has abandoned faith, Wren. "Inquisitor," Wren says, surprised she's speaking to him at all. He has been assigned, over his own protest and Kael's, to assist her review. Marr's decision, not a request. She wanted, she told him plainly, to watch how the boy who trusted Kael most reacted to each new discovery. Wren suspects she is studying him as much as the logs. That is the behavior of a man still looking for someone to prove him wrong. It is during this review that Wren finds it, 3 decks below, in an archive segment so old its data crystals have to be read by hand-crank projector. A personnel file. Ilian Chorus. Termination order. Cycle 2100, authorized by an Ordo Hereticus seal that predates Tessa Marr's own commission by decades. The stated cause: doctrinal deviation consistent with the artifact designated Ferrum Occulta. Subject and all associated findings ordered destroyed. Wren does not sleep that night. He tells no one, not yet. He sits with the knowledge the way Kael once sat with it, alone, turning it over, understanding for the first time that his Magos has spent 9 years walking a road with a grave already dug at the end of it, and walked it anyway. Buried in the same archive segment, beneath the termination order, he finds one more thing. A corrupted audio fragment, 40 seconds long, the last surviving recording of Ilian Chorus's voice, before his file goes silent forever. Wren plays it only once. The voice is old, tired, and unafraid in a way that unsettles him more than fear would have. "If anyone finds this," the recording says, static swallowing every third word, "know that I do not regret the search. I regret only that I was not braver, sooner, about what I found." Tell whoever guards this place after me. The answer was never going to be comfortable. Comfort was never the promise. Only truth was the promise. I chose truth. I would choose it again. The recording ends. Ren sits in the dark of the archive for a long time afterward, 40-year-old words settling into him like sediment, before he finally goes to find Kael. He goes to the Reliquary himself, without permission, 3 days later, needing to see the thing that was worth a man's life twice over. The chamber itself defies easy description. The vessel's hull curves upward into darkness. The station's lumens have never fully reached. Its surface neither metal nor stone, but something that seems to remember being both. Frost gathers along its lower seams, despite the forge heat bled in from the decks above. And the air carries a low, almost musical resonance that no engineer on the station has ever been able to trace to a mechanical source. Ren has walked past the outer bulkheads of this place 100 times in 9 years. He has never once, until tonight, walked in alone. He is not alone for long. Kael is already there, and moments later, so is Marr, drawn, she will admit afterward, by nothing more than an old investigator's instinct that the truth of this station lived in that chamber and nowhere else. There, Kael says, hushed, reverent despite himself, pointing to the inscription he has walked past 10,000 times. I have translated perhaps one word in 400. But this phrase, this one, recurs, above every access point, every chamber threshold. What does it say? Marr asks. He is quiet a long moment. The closest translation I can construct is, we built what remembers, so that memory would not need us. Quieter still, Inquisitor, I do not believe this vessel predates the Omnissiah's teachings because it disproves them. I believe it predates them because it may be one of the things those teachings were built to explain. Do you understand the difference? It is not a lie beneath our faith. It may be the first truth our faith was built to survive. You knew, Ren says suddenly, his voice cracking, unable to hold it any longer. You knew what happened to Magos Vorus. You knew this exact chamber already cost a man his life. And you kept walking down here anyway. You let me walk down here with you. Kael turns to him, and for the first time in 9 years, Ren watches something in his teacher's composure genuinely fracture. Yes, Kael says simply. I knew. I did not tell you because I hoped, foolishly perhaps, that I would find an answer before it mattered, that I could carry the weight of it long enough to spare you from having to. That wasn't your choice to make for me? No, Kael admits. It wasn't. I am sorry, Ren. I have been sorry for 9 years and said nothing, which I am beginning to understand was its own kind of cowardice. Tessa Marr watches this exchange in silence, and something in her own carefully maintained certainty shifts as well. In 11 years of service, she has heard heretics rationalize, threaten, weep, and beg. She has never once heard a man offer his heresy to her like a hypothesis, carefully, humbly, still hoping to be corrected. And she has never, in any case file she has ever closed, found a predecessor's execution quietly buried beneath the very artifact she was sent to judge again. If I report what you've just said to me, word for word, she finally says, very quiet, you understand. There is no tribunal in the Imperium that reads it as anything but confession. The same tribunal, it seems, that already killed a man, for saying less. I understand, Kael says. Then why did you say it? Because you asked me a true question, Inquisitor, and I find that I am very tired of answering true questions with lies, even to save myself, even after watching it cost my predecessor everything. Marr's own retainers, meanwhile, have not been idle. Halvo Renk, still smarting from his interrogation, still eager to prove his own loyalty beyond question, approaches one of them privately, with something he believes will finally shift the Inquisitor's suspicion away from himself and squarely onto Kael. A partial data wafer, recovered from the archive terminal Ren used 3 nights prior, showing exactly what the boy accessed and when. He does not know yet what he has actually handed them. He believes he is protecting himself. He is, in fact, about to force the exact confrontation Kael was trying to prevent. On the 9th day, 2 things happen within an hour of each other. The first, word arrives by astropathic relay that a Mechanicus cruiser, the Lex Immota, has altered course toward Ashgavar Minor. A full Magos militant retrieval team, commanded by Magos Dominus named Threl Vash, a man whose service record includes the sanctioned destruction of no fewer than 3 doctrinally compromised research stations in the past decade alone. Kael's superiors, it seems, intercepted fragments of his own transmissions independently of Marr's investigation. And where the Inquisitor came seeking truth, the Lex Immota comes seeking silence, permanently applied. The second, Renk's data wafer, reaches Marr's senior retainer, a hard doctrinaire woman named Ansel Doro, who reads it not as evidence of a frightened boy's grief, but as proof of active concealment reaching beyond Kael himself, to the Inquisitor's own investigation. Doro brings it to Marr directly, along with a pointed question neither of them says aloud. Has the Inquisitor's judgment, too, been compromised by 3 weeks aboard this station? Marr reads the wafer in silence. Then she does something Ansel Doro has never once seen her do in 4 years of service together. She sets it down, unactioned, and says only, "I will handle this personally." Doro does not challenge her, but the look on her face makes clear she will not forget the moment either. The station spends the hours before the Lex Immota's arrival in a strange, brittle quiet. Work does not stop. The Cult Mechanicus does not permit idle hands, even in the shadow of its own judgment. But every hammer fall on the gantries below sounds to Ren's ears like a countdown. Engineers who have served alongside Kael for a decade avoid his eyes in the corridors. Not out of malice, he understands, but because they do not yet know whether solidarity with him will be read. Tomorrow has its own quiet heresy. Ansel Doro finds Marr checking and rechecking the seal on the closure order for the 4th time in an hour, a habit Marr herself does not usually indulge. "You've never doubted a ruling this hard before," Doro says. "It is not quite a question." "I have never closed a case this fast before either," Marr admits. 11 days is not enough time to be certain, Doro. It is only enough time to be honest about how little certainty this work actually offers, if you are willing to look at it directly. And if you're wrong, if Vasha is right, and this Magos has simply hidden his heresy better than most, then I will answer for that error to my own Ordo, as I have answered for every judgment I have ever made. Marr sets the sealed order down at last. But I will not manufacture a heretic simply because a Magos Dominus finds an honest question more dangerous than a comfortable lie. That failure I refuse to answer for, Doro, whatever it costs me. Vorus Kael understands immediately what the Lex Immota's approach means. Whatever he has found will not survive contact with an institution that requires it not to exist. And this time, there will be no data wafer, no archived personnel file, no younger acolyte left to eventually stumble onto the truth 30 years from now. Vash's methods, station legend holds, leave nothing behind to stumble onto. "Inquisitor," he says, steady but final, a man who has already made peace with something. "I need you to take Ren off the station before that cruiser arrives." "And you?" she asks. "I will stay. I will hand them exactly what they came for. And nothing more. Whatever conclusions I have drawn will die with me, in a manner of my choosing rather than theirs. Chorus did not have that choice. I intend to take it while I still can." "That is not devotion, Magos," she says, sharp. "That is despair wearing devotion's robes." "Perhaps," he admits quietly. "But it is the only shape of faith I have left large enough to protect that boy with." This is the moment. The one the story opened with. 4 hours from now, a data slate will lie shattered on a corridor floor. Someone in this exchange will not walk away whole. But not perhaps in the way any of them expect. Ren arrives at a run, breathless, having overheard enough. "No," he says. "No, you don't get to decide that for me. Either of you." He turns to Kael. "You taught me that faith without evidence is just fear with better manners. That's what you said, Magos. Cycle 2000, I memorized it. You taught me that. And Chorus, you should have told me about Chorus the day I asked to walk down to that chamber the first time. But you didn't, because you wanted to protect me. I understand that now. I'm done being protected by silence." He turns to Marr. "And you told me heretics hide, and he never hid anything. You said that yourself. Then Ansel Doro brings you a wafer with my name on it, and you don't even ask me what's on it before deciding what it means. You decide to handle it personally instead. That's not justice, Inquisitor. That's you already knowing what you'd find if you looked closer, and choosing not to look." He looks between them both. "So, which one of you is going to actually believe what you taught me? Or was all of it just words you say until they cost you something?" Silence in that corridor lasts 4 full seconds. It is the longest silence in this story. The Ordo Hereticus's writ requires me to purge confirmed heresy. Marr says slowly, as if the decision is arriving in real time, not before it. "It does not require me to manufacture a confirmation I do not, in good conscience, possess." She turns to Kael. "Your logs describe a hypothesis, Magos. Not a doctrine, not a congregation, not an act. A man asking whether the thing he has devoted his life to might be larger and stranger and older than he was told." Her voice hardens, grows more certain. "That is not heresy. That is the exact act of faith the ecclesiarchy claims to want and never actually survives being offered. Chorus paid for asking it honestly. I will not let this station pay that price twice while I still hold this writ." "Inquisitor," Kael says, quiet, disbelieving. "Vache will not accept your closure. He will come regardless, and a Magos Dominus with a sanctioned demolition record does not ask an Ordo Hereticus seal for permission twice. Then he will find a sealed Ordo Hereticus ruling standing in his way," she answers, "and a jurisdictional confrontation he did not come prepared to win." I did not become an Inquisitor to protect the Imperium's comfort, Magos. I became one to protect its truth. Today, for once, those two things are not the same demand, and I intend to be standing on this deck when the Lex Immota's shuttle docks to make certain everyone aboard it understands the difference. Kael crosses the corridor to Ren, while Marr gives her orders, and for a moment, neither of them says anything at all. I did not think I would be given the chance to say this again. Kael finally says, I am proud of you, Ren. Not for finding what you found, for refusing to let either of us decide your own courage for you. That is a harder lesson than the one about faith and evidence, and you have learned it faster than I ever did. I learned it from watching you almost fail to learn it, Ren says, and there is no anger left in his voice now, only something rawer and more tired. Don't do that to me again. Whatever you find down there next, I'd rather carry the weight beside you than find it in an archive file after you're gone. Agreed, Kael says quietly. Agreed. She turns to Doro. Draft the closure order. Full Ordo Hereticus seal. I want it transmitted to the Lex Immota before their shuttle clears the outer marker, not after they've already landed retrieval teams on my deck. Doro hesitates. One final flicker of doubt, the same doubt Marr has just spent 3 weeks working through herself. Then she nods and goes. The Lex Immota's shuttle docks 4 hours later. Magos Dominus Threl Vache descends the ramp in full battle plate, 6 Magos militant at his back, expecting a compromised station ripe for cleansing. Instead, he finds an Inquisitor standing squarely in his path, flanked by her own retainers, a writ already sealed and transmitted ahead of his arrival. Inquisitor Marr, Vache says, his voice modulated through Vox Grill into something flat and metallic. This matter falls under Mechanicus' internal doctrine. Stand aside. This matter fell under my jurisdiction the moment an astropathic distress signal cited heretical activity. Marr answers, unmoving. It ceased to be your internal doctrine 3 weeks ago, Magos Dominus. My investigation is complete. My ruling is sealed. You are welcome to lodge a formal jurisdictional dispute with the Ordo Hereticus proper, from Mars, through the correct channels, in the correct decade. My orders come directly from the Fabricator General's own office. And my authority comes directly from the Emperor's, Marr says. And for the first time, her voice carries an edge sharp enough to cut. I have yet to find the document that ranks one above the other, Magos Dominus. Have you? Vache does not answer immediately. Behind his Vox grill, servos click and whir. The closest a man half replaced by machinery can come to visibly weighing a losing position. He has burned 3 stations for lesser resistance than this. But 3 stations, station gossip will later note with grim amusement, did not have a sealed Ordo Hereticus ruling and a woman with 19 executions to her name standing in the doorway. This will be noted, he says finally, formally, to Mars. Note it however pleases you, Marr replies. Note as well that I found no heresy here worth the Imperium's time. Only a man doing careful, documented, faithful work in difficult circumstances. If Mars disagrees with my ruling, Mars may say so to my face, and not through a retrieval team sent to erase the question before it could be answered honestly. Vache holds her gaze a moment longer, then turns without another word and orders his team back aboard the shuttle. He leaves within the hour, his retrieval team unblooded, his report to Mars carefully worded to avoid admitting he was turned away by a single Inquisitor and 6 retainers. It is, station personnel will say for years afterward. The only known instance of the Ordo Hereticus and the Adeptus Mechanicus nearly coming to blows over a case that officially never existed at all. Tessa Marr's report, 3 lines, unusually brief for her, closes the file on Object Ferrum Occulta permanently. Insufficient evidence of heretical activity. Artifact recommended for continued sanctioned study, understanding Mechanicus oversight. Case closed. She does not mention the inscription. She does not mention what it said. She does not mention Ilion Chorus, though she quietly amends his personnel file before she leaves. A single administrative correction, changing reassignment to deceased in service, cause classified. The smallest true thing she can leave behind in a system built to prefer comfortable lies. Halvo rank transfers off the station within the month, his ambitions for advancement having cost him, in the end, nothing but the trust of everyone who remains. Nobody stops him from leaving. Nobody asks him to stay. Ansel Doro remains in Marr's service, though something between them has quietly recalibrated. She no longer brings suspicion to her Inquisitor, as though it were a gift to be gratefully received. She brings questions instead, and waits now to see what Marr does with them before deciding what she herself believes. It is, Marr reflects privately, a slower way to run an investigation. She has begun to suspect it may also be a more honest one. Ren is offered, at the end of that year, a transfer to a senior seminary on a Forge world 3 sectors distant, a rare honor for an acolyte his age, and the kind of opportunity that does not come twice. He declines it. When Kael asks him why, expecting some sentimental answer about loyalty, Ren only shrugs. Chorus left something unfinished here, he says. So did you, in a way, before Marr came. I don't especially want to be the 3rd name on that plate someday for the same reason. I'd rather stay and help finish it properly, however long that takes. Kael does not argue. He has learned this past year that some doors are better left for the person standing in front of them to open in their own time. Vorus Kael returns to his logs. His language, Ren notices, does not go back to what it was. He does not reclaim the certainty he lost. But he keeps working. Not despite the doubt now, but somehow, impossibly, alongside it. Log entry, cycle 4421. He records, his voice softer than before. I do not know still what built the vessel beneath us, or why. I suspect I will die not knowing. I find, strangely, that this no longer frightens me as it once did. Perhaps faith was never meant to be certainty. Perhaps it was only ever meant to be the willingness to keep working in the dark, in service of a light we are not permitted to fully see. If that is heresy, Omnissiah, forgive me. I do not think I know how to serve you any other way now. He adds Ilion Chorus's name to the brass plate a second time, this time not as a predecessor's footnote, but carved beside his own, so that whoever comes after them both will know that 2 men, decades apart, stood in this exact chamber and chose the truth over their own safety. Somewhere above a dead world, a data slate no longer lies broken. Ren keeps it now, the one from the corridor, repaired, its cracked screen a scar rather than a wound. He does not know yet whether he believes what it once asked. Was the machine god ever listening? Or did we simply need him to be? But for the first time, he understands that the question itself was never the danger. The danger was always believing that asking it made you unworthy of an answer. Anchorate Tertius still hangs above Oshkovar Minor today, 12 kilometers of consecrated cable holding it fast against a dead world's slow red winds. New engine seers arrive each decade, trained in the standard doctrines, expecting the standard certainties. Most leave again within a few years, unremarkable, unchanged. A few do not. A few walk the length of that outer hull the way Vorus Kael once did, tracing letters that mean nothing and everything, and find that the questions waiting for them there are patient enough to outlast every easy answer sent to replace them. Those are the ones, station legend holds, who eventually find their own names carved quietly beside a brass plate that has, by now, grown far longer than anyone ever intended it to be. This is the Silent Litany, not a hymn of certainty, a hymn of the ones who kept faith anyway, not because they were sure, but because they had already decided who they wanted to become.